So, I want you to imagine a really high-end restaurant on a super busy Saturday night.
Oh, the absolute peak of the dinner rush.
Exactly. Like if you're sitting out in the dining room, maybe you've got a glass of wine, everything looks perfectly serene.
Right, totally calm.
Right. But if you look behind the swinging doors, the kitchen is it's on the brink of total collapse.
It usually is.
Yeah. I mean, if you've ever watched shows like The Bear or any of those intense food service shows, you know the vibe. The ticket printer is just cascading paper, pans are clashing, the heat is insane.
The line cooks are moving at, like, a dangerous velocity.
Exactly. The whole system is overloading. But to save the night, the head chef doesn't, like, call a timeout or launch into some long explanation. They just scream out this simple two-digit number over all the noise. They yell, 86 the chicken!
And just like that, the chaos sort of shifts.
Yeah, the panic is contained, which is just fascinating when you take a step back and really look at it.
It's a remarkable moment of operational control, really. That single number just cuts through the noise of a commercial kitchen like a scalpel.
Yeah.
It's definitive, it's urgent,
Right.
and it immediately changes the behavior of every single person on the floor.
So today we are taking a deep dive into a stack of historical research and linguistic analysis that unpacks exactly that. We're looking at the origins, the evolution, and the deep utility of the term 86.
It is a surprisingly deep rabbit hole for a two-digit number, honestly.
Oh, for sure. The mission for this deep dive is to figure out why the hospitality industry people, whose literal job is just to serve us dinner, right?
Correct.
Why they rely so heavily on these numerical secret codes.
Right, codes you'd normally expect from, like, police officers or the military or spies.
Exactly. We are going to track how this highly specific kitchen slang kind of escaped the restaurant and infiltrated our everyday language. And most importantly, we're going to try and solve the historical mystery behind where the number actually came from.
Yeah, and to fully grasp it, we kind of have to start by analyzing the environment that birthed it. You mentioned cops and spies. And while chefs aren't exactly navigating life or death combat.
Thankfully.
Right. But the physiological reality of a commercial kitchen during a rush is actually quite similar to a crisis zone.
Oh, wow. I mean, I guess the stress levels are through the roof.
Oh, absolutely. It's a relentlessly fast-moving, highly pressurized environment. The margin for error is effectively zero. A restaurant is basically this complex system of inputs and outputs, and when the system starts to bottleneck, it can literally crash the entire night's service.
You know, that actually makes me think of how software operates.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, to me, yelling 86 the chicken is basically the real-world equivalent of getting a 404 error page not found on a website.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Right, because when you click a broken link, a 404 error doesn't just, casually tell you the page is missing. It actively stops your browser from sending this infinite loop of requests that would eventually crash the whole server. It severs the connection to protect the system.
That analogy actually holds up perfectly on a mechanical level.
Thanks, yeah.
Because, think about it, if the kitchen runs out of a crucial ingredient, say, the sauce for the chicken, they can't just keep accepting orders and hope for the best.
Right, you can't just pretend you still have it.
Exactly. If the waitstaff keeps writing tickets for a dish that physically cannot be produced, those tickets pile up, the cooks get confused, the timing of literally every other dish gets derailed.
And suddenly you have a dining room full of angry patrons demanding to know why their food is taking an hour.
Precisely. So by yelling 86, the chef throws a hard stop at the point of sale. It prevents that cascading failure.
It's all about efficiency.
It is. But that efficiency is really only half the equation here. The other half, according to the source material, is concealment.
Yes. Concealment is where this gets wildly interesting to me. Because the code isn't just used for running out of soup, right?
Not at all.
The research notes that 86 is frequently deployed as a tactic for human crowd control. Specifically, it's used to signal that a customer needs to be escorted off the premises immediately.
Yeah, the human element of hospitality is incredibly volatile. If you are running a bar or a restaurant and you encounter a tricky situation, say a patron is dangerously intoxicated or they're becoming aggressive, harassing the staff,
You have to shut that down.
you have to neutralize the threat immediately, but you have to do it without shattering the carefully curated atmosphere of the room. Public perception is literally the currency of the hospitality industry.
Totally. I mean, nobody wants to eat their overpriced sea base while a bar fight breaks out in the corner.
Definitely not.
If a manager starts shouting, get this guy out of here, call the police, the illusion of the serene dining room is instantly destroyed.
Everyone stops eating.
Yeah, everyone pulls out their phones to record it, and the ambiance is just ruined. But the code solves that. A bartender can just make eye contact with a bouncer across the room and quietly say, hey, we need to 86 the guy in the red shirt.
The mechanism there is stealth.
Hmm.
It provides a really vital layer of operational security. The staff gets the urgent physical assistance they need to remove the threat, but to the couple celebrating their anniversary at the next table, nothing is amiss.
They have no idea.
Right. The code relies on the asymmetry of information. The staff knows exactly what is about to happen, and the disruptive patron remains completely oblivious until the bouncer is literally tapping them on the shoulder.
It's basically stealth crowd control. But if this term was engineered as this perfect, airtight insider shorthand to keep operations quiet, how did it leak?
We mean?
Well, it definitely didn't stay in the kitchen. I mean, we all use it now, even if we've never worked a day in food service.
Oh, right. Well, the sociology of language is porous by nature. Slang rarely stays quarantined, especially in an industry that employs millions of people.
That makes sense.
Waiters, bartenders, cooks, they clock out. They go to other bars. They talk to their friends who work in offices or construction. And they just naturally bring their workplace vernacular with them. Humans love adopting insider jargon.
Oh, for sure. That makes you feel like you're part of an exclusive club.
Exactly. And what's really worth noting here is how the definition of the word stretched as it moved into the mainstream. It evolved from a highly literal command about, restaurant inventory into a much broader, universal metaphor for finality.
Yeah, you hear it in almost every facet of life now. Like a friend might text you that their job application got 86, meaning they didn't get the position.
Right.
Or you'll be watching a broadcast and the sports commentators will say that a sudden injury just 86 a quarterback's chances of making the playoffs. It has come to mean cancellation, rejection. It just means something is over.
It acts as a cultural shorthand for elimination. However, our source material highlights that in certain contexts, particularly in noir fiction, mob movies, and underworld slang, the term took an incredibly dark turn.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, in those circles, 86 escalated from meaning cancel to meaning kill.
Wow.
To 86, someone is to murder them. And the source actually makes a very specific claim about this transition. They suggest that while jumping from a shortage of potatoes to a homicide is extreme, the leap is actually, quote, understandable.
Okay, wait. I am going to have to heavily challenge the source on that specific phrasing. Calling that leap understandable feels completely unhinged to me.
It's definitely a bold claim.
Right. It is absolutely wild that a practical phrase invented to quietly communicate that a kitchen is out of salmon somehow morphed into synonymous slang for taking a human life. I just refuse to believe that is a natural linguistic progression.
The sheer scale of the escalation is jarring, without a doubt. And just to be clear, we are purely reporting on the source's linguistic analysis here, not endorsing the action itself.
Of course, definitely.
But if we break down the conceptual framework of what the word actually does, rather than just the severity of the outcome, the source's argument actually starts to take shape.
Okay, I'm listening.
The core mechanism of the word 86 is removal. If a chef 86 is a dish, it ceases to exist on the menu. If a bouncer 86 is a patron, they cease to exist inside the bar.
Right.
The criminal underworld requires secret codes for the exact same reasons a restaurant does: clarity and concealment. And in their world, the most permanent, ultimate form of removal is death.
Okay, so you're saying they essentially hijacked the metaphor, because talking about murder out loud is a great way to go to prison, so they needed a euphemism, and the restaurant industry had already built this perfectly good code for making something disappear.
Precisely. Euphemisms thrive in illicit environments. It is grim, and the stakes are infinitely higher, obviously, but the structural logic of the metaphor remains completely intact. You're permanently removing a problem from the premises.
Wow. I mean, I see the structural logic, sure, but it really just highlights how much weight a simple phrase can gather over time.
It really does.
To really understand how this term got so deeply embedded in the culture, we have to look backward. We need to find the moment this secret spoken code finally landed on the printed page. Where does the paper trail actually begin?
For that, we turn to the Oxford English Dictionary.
The Supreme Court of Etymology.
Basically, yeah. They track the earliest verified print usage of every word in the English language. According to their records, the very first time 86 appeared in print as a slang term was in a biography published in 1944.
Oh, eh?
It's written by a journalist named Jean Fowler. The book was titled Good Night, Sweet Prince. It basically chronicled the life of John Barrymore.
Wait, John Barrymore, like the grandfather of Drew
The
Barrymore?
very same.
No way.
Yeah. For context, John Barrymore was this colossal figure in the entertainment industry. He was one of the definitive leading men of the silent movie era, celebrated for his stage presence. And crucially, unlike a lot of his contemporaries whose careers just completely collapsed when audio was introduced to film, Barrymore actually successfully made that incredibly difficult transition into the talkies.
Oh, wow. So he was a huge deal.
He was Hollywood royalty in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
But his brilliance was heavily overshadowed by a severe, lifelong struggle with alcoholism.
Oh, it's sad.
It really was. It ultimately derailed his career and his personal life.
And the specific quote from this 1944 biography just paints this incredibly stark, tragic picture of his later years. Because the author's describing Barrymore drinking at a specific location, and he writes, "There was a bar in the Belasco building, but Barrymore was known in that cubby as an 86.
Right?
And then the author actually takes a moment to translate the term for the reader, adding, "An 86 in the patois of Western dispensers means don't serve him."
It's just a devastating image.
The irony is suffocating. You have this towering, world-famous Hollywood icon, a man who literally transitioned from the silent era to the era of spoken dialogue. And in the end, he is silenced by a bartender using a 2-digit code.
Yeah, his entire identity and legacy are reduced to a number just so the staff can avoid a public scene.
But from a historical perspective, the phrasing in that quote really catches my attention. The author explicitly refers to it as the patois of Western dispensers.
Yes.
What does that imply about the timeline of this word?
It implies everything about the timeline. That single word, patois, is kind of the skeleton key to understanding the history here. A patois refers to a specialized dialect, the jargon or the unwritten language of a specific, often working class or marginalized group.
Right.
And Western dispensers is really just a somewhat poetic, elevated way for the author to describe bartenders working out west, specifically in the Los Angeles area where Barrymore was drinking.
Oh, I see. So the author isn't inventing the term for his book?
Not at all. By casually referring to it as a patois, the author is signaling to the reader that 86 was already a fully formed, established piece of industry slang. Bartenders in the 1930s and early 40s were already using it fluidly among themselves. Spoken language almost always predates written language, especially in working class environments where, people are just too busy doing the labor to sit down and document their vocabulary.
That makes total sense.
The slang was living in the air for years before Fowler finally pinned it to the page in 1944.
So we have firmly established that by the time Barrymore is drinking at the Blasker building, the code is fully operational. It means cut this guy off.
Yep.
But that brings us to the ultimate mystery of this entire deep dive. The question that really sparked this whole analysis to begin with. Why the number 86?
Yeah.
I mean, why not 99? Why not 42? What is the actual significance of that specific combination of digits?
That is the million-dollar question. Linguists, historians, and bartenders have been debating this for decades. Our source actually lays out 4 major competing origin theories. And analyzing how these theories stack up against each other is basically a masterclass in how human beings try to rationalize the mysterious parts of their own culture.
Let's test them out. Walk me through theory number 1.
Okay, theory number 1 revolves around the concept of capacity. The premise is that in certain older restaurants or prominent bars, the legal maximum limit for the number of patrons allowed inside by the local fire marshal was exactly 85 people.
Oh, okay.
Therefore, if the room was at total capacity and you were the 86th person to walk through the front door, the staff had to turn you away. You were 86th.
I mean, I can totally see why people latch onto that one. Logically, it tracks. A restaurant operates under strict health and safety codes, and a fire capacity limit is a hard numerical boundary. It makes perfect sense as a point of origin.
It makes absolute sense on paper, which is exactly why the myth is so pervasive. Humans just crave logical narratives. The problem is, there is zero historical documentation to back it up.
Really? Zero?
None. Etymologists and historians have scoured old municipal fire codes, building permits, and occupancy limits from the era, looking for any evidence that 85 was a standard, widespread legal limit that would have influenced an entire industry's slang.
And nothing.
Absolutely nothing. It appears to be a retroactive myth, a story people just invented after the fact to impose logic onto a number they didn't understand.
Okay, well, if historians are striking out because there's no written record of these fire codes, my mind naturally pivots to an entity that literally writes everything down in triplicate. Is there a military connection here?
You're leading us right into theory number 2.
Nice. Let's hear it.
The military theory is incredibly popular, and it centers on the concept of being AWOL, absent without leave.
Sure, yeah.
In the Uniform Code of Military Justice, or the UCMJ, the legal statutes that govern the armed forces going AWOL falls directly under Article 86.
Oh, wow.
Right. So the theory argues that soldiers returning from service in World War II flooded back into the civilian workforce, specifically into hospitality jobs, and they just brought their military jargon with them. They began using Article 86 to describe a menu item that was missing or absent.
You know, I actually find the sociological aspect of that really compelling. You have millions of GIs taking off their uniforms in 1945 and putting on restaurant aprons. And the timeline also roughly aligns with the first print usage in 1944, right in the thick of the war.
It does line up nicely.
It's a massive cultural crossover. But if we look at the context of how the word was actually being used in that Belasco bar, the mechanics of the translation completely fall apart for me.
How so?
Well, AWOL means a soldier is missing. They aren't where they're supposed to be. But John Barrymore wasn't missing.
Right.
He was sitting right there on a bar stool, actively demanding a drink. The bartender wasn't saying Barrymore is absent. He was saying, do not serve this man who is currently in front of me. The direct translation of the military code just doesn't fit the physical reality of the situation. Why would a bartender use a code for missing to handle a guy who refuses to leave?
You've hit the nail on the head. That is the precise counter-argument linguists use to dismiss the military theory. Yeah. While military slang undeniably shaped mid-century American English, forced metaphors rarely survive. If the definition doesn't fit the daily utility of the worker using it, the slang just dies out.
Makes sense. So if it didn't come from a sprawling national institution like the military, maybe it went the complete opposite direction. Maybe it was a hyper-local phenomenon that just happened to go viral. What is theory number 3?
Theory 3 is the geographic theory. It links the term exclusively to a very famous historic speakeasy in New York City called Chumbley's Bar, which was located in Greenwich Village.
Oh, Greenwich Village in the 30s and 40s was an absolute hotbed for writers, artists, and bohemian culture. It is exactly the kind of place that would generate its own slang.
Exactly. And the address for Chumbley's was 86 Bedford Street. According to this highly popularized local legend, when a customer got too rowdy or intoxicated, the bouncers would literally physically throw them out the front door onto the sidewalk. As the ejected customer picked themselves up and looked back at the establishment, the last thing they would see was the large brass number 86 affixed above the door.
Okay.
Thus, the phrase was born. They had been 86ths.
I mean, I just have to call it out. That sounds exactly like a tall tale a bartender would invent at 2 a.m. to entertain a gullible tourist.
It really does.
It is just too cinematic. Oh, you want to know where the famous phrase started? Right here on this very sidewalk, buddy.
I completely reject the idea that a piece of hyperlocal New York City real estate geography somehow became the standard patois of Western bartenders all the way out in Los Angeles by the early 1940s. Geography just didn't travel that fast before the internet. You are echoing the exact sentiments of modern etymologists. Word historians are notoriously dubious of origin stories that tie a widespread idiom to a single street address or a single, highly specific event. Unless there is a mountain of primary source documentation proving the migration of the term, they don't buy it.
And I'm guessing there's no mountain of proof here.
In the case of Chumbley's, there is no paper trail connecting a door in Manhattan to a bartender in Hollywood. It is a fantastic story, but terrible history.
All right, well, if it's not the fire department, it's not the military tribunals, and it's not a magical door in Greenwich Village, we have to look at the building blocks of language itself. If institutions and geography fail us, what does linguistics tell us? Theory number 4 has a lot riding on it.
Theory 4 is undeniably the least cinematic of the bunch, but linguistically, it is the most sound. It's the most mechanically functional, and it's the most widely accepted by experts. It proposes that 86 is simply a product of rhyming slang.
Rhyming slang, like the same way Cockney slang in London operates, where people say apples and pears when they actually mean stairs.
Exactly that mechanism. Our source suggests that the absolute best, most elegant explanation is that the number 86 simply rhymes with the slang word nix. N-I-X.
What's this?
The word nix has been in the working class vocabulary since the 1800s. It actually stems from the German word nix, meaning nothing. By the early 20th century, it was widely used as a verb meaning to disagree, to reject, or to cancel something. You would nix a bad idea or nix a plan.
So if you are a chef in a deafeningly loud kitchen and you want to tell the line cooks to nix the soup, the chaos of the environment just starts to mold the language.
Yes, exactly. In high-stress environments where your cognitive load is just maxed out,
Yeah.
the human brain relies on mnemonic devices to remember commands. Rhymes stick in the brain much easier than standard sentences. It's the same reason we can remember song lyrics from 20 years ago, but forget what we had for breakfast.
That is so true.
So nix the soup easily, naturally morphs into a rhyming code. 86 the soup.
Oh, wow. The puzzle pieces are just locking together right now. It is brilliant because it solves every single problem we outlined at the beginning of this deep dive.
It really does.
It hits the efficiency metric because it's quick to yell and easy to remember, but more importantly, it hits the concealment metric.
Exactly.
Because if a bartender looks at a waiter and says, nix that guy's drinks, the customer hears the word nix, knows exactly what it means, and immediately becomes combative. But if the bartender says, 86 that guy, the command is masked. The customer has no idea they've just been cut off until a glass of water arrives instead of a martini.
It creates this exclusionary insider code using just the natural evolution of human language. It doesn't require a secret military court, and it doesn't require a historic speakeasy. It just requires working-class people trying to communicate efficiently under immense pressure. It really is the most elegant solution to the historical mystery.
It is not glamorous, but it is profoundly functional. So what does this all mean for you listening to this deep dive today? Well, the next time you are out at a crowded restaurant or you are hosting a dinner party and you hear someone casually drop the phrase 86, you now have the perfect piece of insight to share.
The ultimate trivia fact.
Totally. You can explain that this little snippet of TV chef jargon is actually a sprawling linguistic journey. It is a term that echoes out of the tragic, smoke-filled bars of 1940s Hollywood, brushes up against military history and New York City folklore, and ultimately proves that rhyming slang is a powerful tool for survival in a chaotic kitchen.
It serves as a fantastic testament to how creative and resilient working-class communication truly is. The hospitality industry engineered a solution to a very specific operational problem, and they did it so effectively that the rest of the world eventually decided to borrow it for themselves.
They absolutely did. But, as we wrap up this exploration, I want to leave you with one final, slightly unnerving thought to chew on. Think about the timeline we just discussed. Think about how 86 started as this heavily guarded secret patois among bartenders, totally hidden from the public ear for decades, before it finally leaked out into the wider world. It forces you to wonder, how many other secret industry codes are currently being spoken all around you right now?
Oh, that's a wild thought.
Right. When you are navigating a crowded grocery store or sitting on a commercial airplane or checking your bags at a hotel desk, what secret strings of numbers or hidden phrases are the staff using to describe you or the situation right to your face? And which of those invisible codes will inevitably leak out to become the common, everyday slang of tomorrow, completely divorced from whatever it originally meant?
That is a fascinating and honestly, mildly terrifying perspective to consider the next time you enter a place of business.
We will leave you to think about that one the next time you catch a flight attendant giving a weird look to the person across the aisle and picking up the intercom. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.